Hi, friends. Today I would like to conclude, at least for now, and at least in video format, this little mini series on projection. I have a few final thoughts and insights that have come to me thanks to some sessions that I've had with you guys over the past couple of weeks, as well as the way in which Christy and I have turned up the dial on our own work around projection and my own deeper commitment to it myself. As I said, it is possibly the most profound of the five basics. And if done appropriately, without fear, taking responsibility, which is the basic that it falls under, then it carries with it immense freedom, liberation, and healing. This video is arising only in your awareness. These concepts are arising only in your awareness. Kemper is arising only in your awareness. Therefore, whatever feelings there are, whether perceived positive or negative, wanted or unwanted, comfortable or uncomfortable, whatever friction arises, whatever defense arises, whatever opinions arise about the content, about Kemper, about projection, about who you are only arising in your awareness. Not only ultimately, but relatively as well. And because this place, this experience, this holographic simulated reality is benevolent, then all of that, all of this arising in your awareness is for you. How loving is that? The Heavenly Father hologram gives you exactly what you ask for, whether you know you're asking for it or not, and exactly what you need to heal and be free. The requirement is that you take responsibility for it. Along with the rich young ruler, one of my other favorite moments with Jesus in the New Testament is when he's talking to his disciples and he says, "Who of you parents, if your child asked you for a fish, would give him or her a snake? Who of you parents, if your child asked for a loaf of bread, would give them a stone?" And of course, the response, the sort of rhetorical response of the audience is, "Of course not, of course not, of course not." So then Jesus says, "How much more then will your heavenly Father give you what you ask for?" And then there are objections all over the place, which cause people to no longer believe in God or no longer believe in prayer or something like this because it's not working and they're not getting what they're asking for. And I keep praying and I keep asking God and it's not coming. Meanwhile, they don't realize where the ask is coming from. I believe that Jesus was talking to his people specifically who were doing this work, some variation of it, to clear out and clean out the subconscious so that the subconscious, the ego, the subpersonality, the contracted nexus knots of fear, limitation, doubt, anxiety, and ultimately separation and deficiency, as long as those things are unresolved, that's where you're going to be asking from. It's sort of like a magnet, and you can be telling yourself, that's why these kind of new age mantras or positive thinking affirmations, in my opinion, don't work. You can paste that on your bathroom mirror and say it every morning and all day to yourself, but unless it really seeps in and unwinds these contractions, then they will continue to magnetize projections and reflections and reinforce and perpetuate this cyclical loop. So I believe that Jesus was calling his people to do this work. And then once it's clear, number one, you don't necessarily have to ask anymore because what you need is given, and what is given is what you need, and what you have, you desire, and what you desire, you have. There's kind of a oneness of step by step by step with the Father or the hologram, with the transcendent. All this talk of like manifesting your best life and even abundance is interpreted as like having a lot of money or another car or the best lover or spouse or something like this. Even if you can like use the power of your mind to manifest something, number one, it's a lot of effort. And number two, if it comes from that place and that unresolution is still there, when you get it, the pattern will still repeat anyway. And it's not even what you were really wanting. But the Heavenly Father gave you what you asked for. It just came with strings attached because you still have strings attached. So I believe also he was talking to people who he had been working with on a one-on-one basis and in groups and in life to unwind these things so that they can now see, oh, once it's clear, what I ask for is given because the place I'm asking for has been healed. And it's not deep down coming from an egoic place of separation. Because if it's deep down coming from an egoic place of separation, then that's exactly what you will project and magnetize and reflect back. The belief in separation. See, I told you so. See, I told you so. See, I told you so. There is something to be afraid of. There is such thing as an other. There is lack and not enough, and I'm not being taken care of. Whatever the stories are. In Buddhism, they have a concept or a phrase called mirror mind. There's an interesting correlation here between mirror mind and what I've been calling the holographic hall of mirrors. Also connected with this concept of sin being outer layers of separation away from the center, away from the ultimate, on the bullseye. The mirror mind is your natural state. In Sanskrit, in the Yoga Sutras, it's Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Probably mispronouncing that slightly. Chitta is the mind field. Vritti means fluctuations, and Nirodha or Nirod means calming or stilling. So when the waves on the water calm down and the surface is the same as the deep, and the moon and the trees can be reflected off of the water exactly directly like a mirror, and there is no separation between what's being reflected, the object, and the reflection itself, and the water. It's all a oneness of being and seeing. And even the one observing the reflections of the objects on the water, the veil between subject object is released. And there is all of this and nothing else. This is the mirror mind. Where there's a natural and easeful calmness of not reaching, not needing, not clinging, not fearful, not grasping, not wishing for anything different, not analyzing, not projecting. Feel into it now. Put aside past, future. Put aside anything being different. Welcome your environment as it is. Put aside interpretation, what anything means. Put aside desire. Put aside trying to fix or get anywhere or get anything. and notice what's being reflected back to you in your peripheral vision, in your direct vision. Perceive it simply. Image on the computer screen, sound of voice, bird sounds, temperature, breath, light. Subtle sense of interior landscape. And if the chitta or the mind is calm, like the water, then these objects, number one, will simply be reflected back directly as they are, with no intermediary of filter, conditioning, or interpretation. They will reflect back based on the state of your mind. If there is friction or fluctuation or waves or turmoil or chaos, remember, ultimately, this is okay too. Ultimately, everything is allowed. Ultimately, there's no such thing as good or bad, left or right or wrong, up or down, positive or negative, inherently. But we're talking about taking responsibility for the manifest experience of yourself in this form. If there are fluctuations on the surface of the water, what does the moon look like reflected back? Ripply. It's dependent on the water, not on the moon. Do you see? What do the trees look like when there are waves crashing? You can barely see the trees for the waves crashing. In the same way, if there's reaching, grasping, sin, forgetting who you are as the ultimate, I would also say, as you remember yourself in the ultimate, that's one of the primary entryways, access points to calming the mind, to stilling chittavrittis, fluctuations of the mind field. What do waves look like? Usually they take the form of separation, lack, need, deficiency, fear, insecurity, desire, duality, forgetting. And therefore, by some process that I'm still working out philosophically, based on my own cognitive understanding as well as my first person experience of projection, like how it happens real time. And this is a really rich conversation that Christy and I are having kind of ongoing right now, It's really even more profound if you can do this work with an other, because that in and of itself is one of the primary beliefs that is a lie in projection, that there's such thing as an other. But if you have two cooperative others doing this work together, it can be tricky, and it can also be even more liberating. Now, when I say that, those of you who have stories around mine and Christy's relationship and are envious or whatever, because I know some of you are, and I'll use that as an example in a moment about projection, don't let that happen. It could be any other. It doesn't have to be significant other, romantic relationship, yada, yada. I've actually invited all of you to come do this work with me because I provide a very clear mirror for you to see. And I feel like some of you might be a little afraid of that. If so, just like I said a few minutes ago, that's the first place you should look. Why? In any case, I'm still working out how it happens. But as I said on the bullseye analogy, it's further and further degrees of separation and distance, quote unquote, from the center or the ultimate or your true self or union with God. And that mirror mind does continue to reflect back the environment, exterior and interior, based on the state of that mind. But in the ultimate, that state of mind is clear, direct, 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 no filter, no interpretation. This. And you're anchored in the ultimates of I amness, always already presence, safety, no boundary, oneness, and projection is somehow also a natural process of this place in the empty fullness or the great nothingness that simply wanted to spill out and experience itself as all the multiplicity of being. Somehow that's part of it. And again, that's how it's perfectly part of the plan and okay. Holographically, each shard, each fragment is not only whole unto itself as a fragment, but contains the whole of that emptiness itself. And so each separate being can return to that source. That's the journey of remembering. That's the journey of awakening. That's the journey of becoming whole. And so how it does that is kind of fracture itself out into millions and billions and trillions and infinite numbers in all dimensions and times and places of mirror chips. You can see it as little mirrors. Each one, again, a mirror unto itself, whole, relatively so, but a part of that greater whole that contains that greater whole in it as kind of a divine spark to signal the return journey. And if you believe yourself to be one of these little shards only in a contracted, tight little part of the universe and part of your psyche, then that will be ultimate projection, ultimate separation, ultimate fear. Potentially, as another piece of my growing and developing system and philosophy, there may be ultimates that are on the negative polarity. I'm not sure quite yet. Ultimate fear, I don't know. But it's sort of like the outermost rungs of hell, where you have hidden from yourself, from yourself, from yourself, from yourself, and then told a lie about hiding from yourself. And if any of this stuff makes you uncomfortable, that means it's working. Because remember, one of the primary concepts to look for in the projection work is anything that bothers you. And then anything that bothers you, especially if your first interpretation of the bothering is that the source of it is over there, that that thing or that person or that event is causing the bothering, bingo. Now you have your first place to look. But the ego will definitely put up a fight because its job is to stay separate. Again, somehow just part of this game we're in right now. I don't know why, but that's how it works. There can also be a positive flavor of the same, but it's still a negative experience that we want to eliminate. And that is on the flip side of something bothering you, if something inspires you, makes you happy, and your first inkling is to say that that thing is causing you happiness, that thing is making you inspired, and thus you have created separation, and then rely on that thing for your happiness, for your inspiration, then what used to seem positive has now been tainted with the negative because it's a projected form of separation, reflecting back the fact that the inspiration is just something that you've not yet accessed in yourself. The happiness is not yet something you've accessed in yourself, so you perceive it out there in the same way as the anger or the rage is something you perceive to be out there, but is not yet something that you have accessed and thus resolved in yourself. So if there's a ping, positively or negatively, and coupled with a finger pointing that something over there is doing that to me, separation. And that's a lie from the start. There are even deeper twists of this. For example, if mine and Christy's relationship inspires you, but the actual feeling that you have about it is one of jealousy or disgust, even, or like, oh, I just wish I had that. It's tainted because it's never about the outer surface of the thing anyway. What you want is not exactly what we have in the first place. What you want is happiness, inspiration, contentment, joy, connection. And you can see that you already have it. The form of it might just be different, and it's kind of a slap in the face of God to presume that you think you know how you want to get it. Back to the Jesus story, where you're asking from, because you are getting exactly what you're asking for if you think about it and look into it. Similarly, I haven't had this conversation with you guys lately at the time of this recording, but back when we were kind of first starting this thing, there was a lot of misunderstanding that I was wanting to set straight based on all the different kinds of teachers and gurus in this town that put themselves on pedestals. And there was kind of an interpretation of who I was or who I was trying to be or what I was trying to do, separating the message from the messenger and all of this kind of conversation. If you continue to see me as separate from yourself, and again, rewind it back to in this moment on this video screen, where is Kemper arising but in your awareness? As an idea first on that chitta screen of consciousness, the mind field, and then projected back whatever feelings or emotions this might be bringing up. I am not even objectively real to you. I am arising in your awareness for a reason. And now you are responsible for what's coming up. You can push stop, you can turn it off, you can leave the group, or you can dig in. That's the invitation. I don't need anybody to stay. That's where Christy and I watch these cult documentaries, and some of the things that come out of my mouth are eerily similar to what these people say. Like, when you start to get uncomfortable, that means you need to stay and make your commitment even more. Guess what? What I'm saying is, when it starts to get uncomfortable, that means the work is working, but you're always free to leave. At the time of this recording, I have recently made more of a container with a certain few requirements, and I understand it has rubbed some people the wrong way. The question is, why? From the perspective of projection and what we're talking about, if the story or the idea or the interpretation is that I'm making you do something, number one, you've not been listening. I've even been very careful to reword my phrasing to say, I'm asking you for commitment and to meet me halfway for your own good, because I want to help for the sake of progress. And this is why, this is what I've seen. This is where people are getting stuck. And the very people who are rebelling a little bit are the ones that are stuck. And that's fine. Continue being stuck. It really is fine. But if the feeling is, don't make me do something, and you project it out, the finger is pointing, you think that I'm making you do something, you've already surrendered your autonomy that nobody can take away or give to you anyway. And maybe in this Hall of Mirrors fracture, projection and reflection, it's in fact that you are afraid to make yourself do something that's good for you. So you blame it on me and then kind of go pout in a corner from some childhood pattern that's coming up. In fact, the positive response is that you want to commit. You want to do this work. But the ego twists it around. So I'm very grateful for the conversations that I'm having with you guys and the work that Christy and I are doing together. She's been giving me a lot of material based on what we're talking about and the ongoing conversation that we're having and her own insights around this. One of which was the reminder that, as I've been saying in the past 2 videos, if it's something that bothers you about an other, you can draw a direct string and see that you do that very thing yourself. That's just the first layer. The definition of projection, one of the primary principles of projection, is that you already believe it's not you. So you have to maybe investigate and be bold enough to see, I don't feel like I do that thing. I really feel like that person's doing it. But if it's bothering you, that's the key. So if another person or event or thing is arising in your awareness and it doesn't bother you or get you overly excited, the waves don't start up, it's just neutral, then that's not for you to look at. It's just happening. What's for you to look at is what really bothers you or really makes you jealous or angry or inspired or worshiping or giving that person something that is tainting your mirror mind of just experiencing that person directly, where you have some kind of response or reaction. So even if it doesn't look exactly like that person, because the ego will say, no, I don't do that thing. I don't. Somewhere, I guarantee you, because we're all holographic mirrors of each other. By the way, I wanted to mention, when I say that the great nothing splinters out into a multiplicity of forms, I'm not coming from a relative sense of like all the people, all the beings, all the rocks, all the trees, all the things are each separated pieces of the oneness, and we just have to come back together as one happy family. I'm more talking about there's a wholeness in each of the parts. That's the hologram. So in your own being, because all of this is in your own being. I hope you understand that. Not the new age, like we need to come together. It's true, but there is no we that's separate from thee to come together. It's all you. See? So you need to reintegrate and remember the whole in yourself, and then what's perceived as outside, within, without, is healed. Okay, so back to this. I can guarantee you that you can find at least somewhere, even if it doesn't look exactly the same, that you do the same thing. And you can put it in a kind of category. So maybe the behavior is not the same, but it's never about the behavior anyway. So whether it's acting out in insecurity or fear or the way someone looks or the way someone moves or someone's lifestyle. When Jesus says, do unto others what you would have them do unto you, or love your neighbor as yourself, he's also saying that you do unto others what you already do to yourself. Isn't that interesting? And he's saying, you already treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. So he's asking us to be aware of that and turn up the knob to do it more consciously, to realize how you treat your neighbor the same way you treat yourself. And then in treating yourself differently, you treat your neighbor differently. And changing what's inside here, healing the separation, then the perceived subconscious projections, quote unquote, others, treat you differently as you would have them do unto you. You see? So I was actually having a conversation with one of you the other day, again, very grateful for this one, where you said, what I realize is I don't give myself the same unconditional love and acceptance that I give other people. This is where my approach is not new by any means, but I am hammering home a particular vibration of this. That sounds good enough, right? I realize, oh, I give everybody else unconditional love and acceptance, but I don't give it to myself. And so in the kind of new age world, it would be applauded as like great realization. And now all you have to do is tape the thing on your mirror and tell yourself every day that you want to love yourself unconditionally. And what does that mean today? Well, that means that I want to have an extra piece of chocolate because my body's calling for it. Or today I need to take care of myself and blah, blah, blah. But the pattern continues, doesn't it? Has any of that worked? Problem is, in this very tricky, because the ego or the devil, Diablos, is the trickster. So it is kind of a game, but the game unfortunately causes monsters, all the suffering in the world. You can see it objectively and lightheartedly, it changes everything. Lighthearted and serious, of course. That's also not to say to disengage and think, oh, it's just frivolous, trivial. It is not. But give yourself a break. If shame comes up, if embarrassment comes up, because this does not make the ego feel good. Ultimately, it's healing and it's liberating. But when you get exposed and when you're vulnerable, when you've been found out and you have to come clean and confess to yourself, because that's all it is anyway, confess yourself to yourself, confess your sins to yourself, return to the ultimate yourself, then there's nothing to be afraid of. But don't be afraid of shame. Don't be afraid of embarrassment. But it is embarrassing every time, which is why the defenses come up, justifications come up, running away comes up, blaming me even more comes up, because these spiritual teachers, because they want numbers and popularity, they don't go in for the kill. That's what it's all about. That's what I do for myself. That's how I've found healing and liberation, among all the other things that I teach and talk about. So we're very uncomfortable with requirements and giving people requirements, not to mention that it's for your own good, not to mention that I'm here to help you and I'm not coercing in any way. I don't want to be a domineering like Zen master, but if you think about it, back in the day, the student would come and kind of apply to be a part of the school, the ashram, or to study with the teacher. And it might take months for the student to prove to the teacher that they were serious. The teacher would kind of just like, oh, hello, and not give them any time of day until finally it showed, oh, this person is serious. They're putting in the work. Now the next step of initiation comes and you're welcome to stay. But then once you stay, not a cult thing, but once you stay until enlightenment and stick it out. But we're afraid of that. And teachers don't like to bring up stuff. Now, this is under the taking responsibility category. So there's all the others that help soften this experience. At the same time, it's never easy and fluffy. So meditation kind of helps to cleanse the palate. It's kind of an enema, something like that. for the system. It flushes out the toxins. Meditation does, as these things are coming up. Meditation itself is not the time to go in and introspect and think about these things. The ultimates with the koans is the constant reminder of who you are, that you ultimately are not all of these problems, all of this ego, all of this separation, and that everything is perfect and arising for you as it is in this moment. The mirror mind, the mirror mind, the mirror mind, the mirror mind. So it's not just shadow hunting, but the shadows are what's keeping you hiding. So back to what I was saying about the unconditional love and acceptance. To me, something sounded fishy when this person was saying this, because I understand the project and reflect thing. The mirror. You don't give to yourself the same unconditional love and acceptance as you give others. Okay, well, if there's no others, and that is yourself, see? Then I ask the question, could it possibly be true that you actually don't give even the unconditional love and acceptance that you think you do, or that you perceive that you give others, and you have thus created this looping, perpetuating story that you just do it to others, and their response to you, which is probably something like they love you because of how you perceive that you treat them, because you've manipulated it such that they do in action only. Could it be true that you don't actually do that? And this person, because you were staying with me, thank you for that. Letting down the defenses, the justification. You realized and said, actually, yeah, I might not act like it, but I am quite judgmental and not unconditionally accepting of other people. Whoa. Amazing confession. And what are the implications of that? I'm just shining the flashlight in and asking you to look. If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to be afraid of. And if it's not true, it's not true. I'm not right all the time, and I don't need to be right. But I am a good mirror, and I've been doing this work for a long time, and I can see. And there was a subsequent release of kind of nausea and shame and guilt and confession. And then at the same time, oh, it's great to admit that. Now, what do I need to shift in how I treat myself and others? Do you see how it's not exactly the first layer, back to what I was talking with Christy about? Just because it bothers you, it doesn't mean that it's only that you do the same thing, even though I would put money on the fact that you do. You can find it somewhere, even subtly. Sometime in your life, you have done that same thing. Therefore, that's why Jesus says, why do you point out the speck of dust in your brother's eye while meanwhile you have a log in your own eye? Take the log out of your own eye, and then you'll be able to see clearly the speck of dust in your brother's eye, and then you might not even feel the need to take it out. It's because that speck of dust reminds you of your own log, and you're like, oh no, shit, I need to get that out. And you perceive that you're trying to get it out of them, when meanwhile you can't even see to do it. And you don't realize it's your own blindness trying to do that to the other person. So that's the first layer, that you do the same thing. You are that one. And it goes a few layers down. I want you to investigate for yourself to these outer rungs of separation and despair and hell. The next layer down is where the ego kind of twists it a little bit in the next fractured mirror shard. And it's like, actually, that quality that's bothering me in that person is bringing up something in me that I just can't access yet. So, for example, someone who feels clear and free in their autonomy, doesn't conform to rules or standards or conditioning. And that's a quality that you actually have dormant in yourself. You don't realize that, and you really want that. So you at the same time admire that quality and hate it. So you create all these stories about that person, about how they don't take people into consideration, they're self-absorbed, they cross boundaries. If they do cross boundaries, then that's another thing. But in their freedom and clarity and autonomy and not being afraid of hurting people's feelings when they're just speaking the truth, if that pings you, you might see that, oh, it actually inspires you, and that, oh, you can actually see that as a mirror reflection of yourself. And it's not them making you feel something at all. It's your own autonomy and freedom, because you still have to ask, why does it bother me? It won't bother or feel the same way to everyone. To someone else who already acts from that place, it won't be much because it's a direct and neutral reflection of themselves. Like, oh, all right. But if it causes friction, if it rubs you, you have to ask why. And so rather than like, that person is rude, that person makes me sick, how disrespectful. It's actually that you want to have those same qualities, but are for some reason afraid to access it yourself. Don't realize that you already have it. You see how it's twisted and hides from itself? And so similarly, whatever it is that you have projected onto me, I'd like to ask you to look at it. Don't run away so soon. Whatever stories you have about me, whatever feelings are arising, because me is arising only in your awareness. And for a reason. If it wasn't relevant, it would be very neutral. Probably wouldn't even be watching this video. But my way, my path is to bring up the stuff that's bothering you and weighing you down anyway. So why not continue it and purge it? These are little pieces of valuable fuel, fodder, I don't know if fodder is like an outdated word. Fuel for the fire. Use everything at your disposal, everything that arises for your awakening and healing. Another layer deeper down of subtlety in this fracturing off I've mentioned before is some kind of lie that you're telling yourself or that the ego is telling you and you are subsequently believing. So the truths are the ultimates. Always, already, no boundary needed, no fear necessary, no separation, oneness, I amness, nothing arising outside of my awareness, alone as yourself, populated with your subconscious, with all there is. A little side note, Carl Jung has a saying that says something like, until the unconscious is brought conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. It's like you don't realize there's another way. And the subconscious, the subconscious / unconscious is always that until it's conscious. That's what this work is. And so there's a lot of egoic yeah buts, and it feels justified because of the separation that we are inbred into, or we are bred into in our culture, and because of the fear that's bred into us from childhood, the beliefs that we buy into based on separation, based on need, based on lack, like something's going to run out, lack of abundance, deficiency, fear that something could possibly go wrong, separation that something or someone could be against you or could harm you. And yes, we have a lot of reflections back in the collective because of our own collective fear and belief around it. The Heavenly Father hologram gives exactly what we need and exactly what we ask for. This is just the way it works, but it's benevolent so that we can see it and do the work. It's not karmic punishment and reward. That in and of itself is a contracted and limited understanding of this. So the rapes, the wars, the sexual scandals, the violence, all of which seem to reinforce, or actually do reinforce, but they seem to make real the need for boundaries, the need for protection, the need to be afraid, the need for defense, the need to look out for number one because resources might run out. I don't know what the fate, to use that word again, is of the collective because we have so much unresolved subconscious shit. And so potentially that's just going to continue. Individually, however, your perception of what's happening in the collective and your individual holographic experience, which again, paradoxically, is none other than the whole collective, within, without, will change. I'm sorry if I lost my train of thought. Will change to the degree with which you change yourself. Remember, like dismembering is taking your arms and legs off. To remember is to put yourself back together again, return, reel it back in. And I am coming up with some kind of worksheet or map or diagram for doing that. The treasure map is one good tool, but this is even something else that I want to look at and break it down. how the projection happens and how to take it back step by step by step, if these videos have not already helped you do that. And so, because of the project and reflect thing and reinforcing the perpetual loop of a belief in a lie, then we're going to have all of these egoic objections like, oh, yeah, but there are bad guys out there. Oh, yeah, but something bad might happen. Oh, yeah, but I need to protect myself. And I've even found myself and other kind of teachers that are coming from the New Age place will say all of this stuff, all of this truth, and then put caveats in there. Like, yeah, but still make sure you have healthy relative boundaries. There's no need for healthy relative boundaries if there's no need to be afraid. And if there's no need to be afraid, you will not manifest something that reflects back your need to be afraid. Boom. You have to test it and see. Somebody's got to let go first. It's like 1, 2, 3, let go. Let it be you. Test it out that there's nothing to be afraid of. We have all of this about don't be afraid of certain things, but when it comes to the bank account, when it comes to money, when it comes to food, when it comes to politics, reserve that part. It's all arising in your awareness and is reflecting back exactly what you're asking for, where you're asking from, and what you need if you can wake up based on my invitations. Take a chance, take a risk, but it's not even a risk, but it feels like it. Same with the embarrassment. It's not embarrassing to anything but the ego. The embarrassment itself is a ploy of the ego to like, oh, don't look at me. I'm just doing my thing, going about your business. It kind of like plays dead and then it'll come back. Bear down on it. Trust God or don't. So you have to see directly through all the 5 basics, through your practice, that there is no separation, there is no other, there is no lack, there is nothing to fear, nothing can harm you. And just like I said in the last video, you have to kind of couple it and combine it and coalesce it rather than just saying those things and not really believing it, because those are very common cliche phrases that teachers say these days. Why is there nothing to fear? Why can nothing harm you? How is that so? Can you see that now? Well, for one, if you're not the body, and the body gets hurt or the body gets sick, then you are something beyond that, and therefore you are not hurt or sick. So all of this manifestation stuff that starts on the outer layers, tries to start through the body and get to presence, is the wrong way. Healthy body equals healthy mind equals enlightenment or something like this. And that if you're sick, you did something wrong. If you start from the center and infiltrate it out, filter it out, then paradoxically, it seems the mind is healed. Spiritual karma is resolved. The body is healthy, light, and free, and there's less illness and sickness. You are removed and disconnected from the system that seems to reinforce these things. When you're in that system that's reinforcing it, you'll probably continue projecting and reflecting back a loop of whatever it is. And it's not a matter of white knuckling, oh no, I don't believe, because that's coming from fear. Do you see that? I believe that I'm healthy, happy, and free, and I can't get sick. I believe I'm healthy, happy, and free, and I can't get sick. I believe I am not the body. I believe I am not the body. If that's coming from fear, the hologram is smarter than you are and will reflect back the fear rather than the words. You can't trick God. But it's benevolent, it's loving. Talk about unconditional love. Will give you exactly what you're asking for and what you need. So even in the there is no separation thing, in the New Agey world, Ken would say, like on the green pluralistic stage of consciousness, people believe that like no separation or oneness is like unity, coming together with a like mind. That's good enough in and of itself, but that's a belief in bodies. That's a belief in separation. To bring parts that are separate together and kind of tie a string around them for a common goal or something like that on the relative scale is not ultimate oneness. It's not ultimate lack of no separation. Ultimate no separation is ultimate nothing is arising outside of my awareness. And anything arising in my awareness, I cannot draw a line between where my awareness ends and that thing begins. Therefore, there are no lines anywhere. Therefore, there are no boundaries anywhere. Therefore, there is no need to protect anything. Therefore, there is no such thing as being vulnerable. Maybe like a big capital V, vulnerable. Jesus on the cross surrendered, but not vulnerable in a scary way. Because even he, as that was happening, knew there's nothing bad happening here. He was being projected on by the unresolved rage and fear of his culture because he himself was poking into people's subconscious, people's egos, the system, culturally, politically, spiritually, and bringing it into question. It was very threatening and scary. If you think about it, these things just go back to very basic fears like, oh, it's scary. It's scary. A lot of these subpersonality monsters started in childhood or in the womb, even. And that's okay, but that's no reason to keep them there. And there's no reason to continue being afraid of yourself and or being afraid of yourself, meanwhile believing that there's a monster out there. And so Jesus, speaking his truth, was threatening. And so the unresolution of the collective arose to try to get rid of him. So especially if you have kind of like violent or murderous thoughts, you think somebody needs to die for what they're doing or thinking or believing, that's another layer of hell where you're actually trying to cut out a piece of yourself that you've not yet owned. And if you're really honest about it, sometimes, if not a lot of times, you wish you yourself were just not here anymore. but you're afraid to admit that. And so you try to cut someone else off. So murderers are attempting to kill or get rid of something in themselves that it would just be simple or simpler. This is simpler than murder, y'all, to just acknowledge it and confess it. And then, as my client did the other day, it was like shame, nausea, vulnerability, defense, and then, oh, that feels good. I think the pattern can shift now. So it seems even Jesus on the cross was clear that he did not need to defend himself because there was no separation. Everything was arising perfectly so in his awareness, in the awareness. And that story and me telling you this story back and back and back is arising in your awareness. All part of a seamless tapestry and flow. And so him connected to that source, expressing in an individuated body mind, was not afraid. There was nothing to be afraid of. Take yourself down from there if you are who you say you are. In fact, when they asked him, "Who do you say you are?" he didn't answer because he let the projections just happen. This is a funny parallel that some of you are going to laugh at, but the Eminem song "I Am" or "Who I Am," he says, "I am whatever you say I am. If I wasn't, then why would I say I am?" It's kind of what Jesus was saying. Don't tell anybody I drew that parallel. But it's a parallel because it's a fractal. I am whatever you say I am. If I wasn't, then why would I say I am? And that's what Jesus' response was when they were interrogating him. He had some opportunities actually to say a certain thing or to recant his statements in order to be set free. There was no need to defend, no need to protect, because he was rooted in the ultimate. This is the work. This is the practice. And it's profound and it's rewarding. Don't do it for a reward. Do it for yourself. Come clean to yourself. Don't do it for me. I don't need anything from you. It's for healing, which is what you claim to want when it's offered to you, especially when it's true. You'd rather continue sitting in the back row. When the ego starts to feel, oh, this is the real kind of healing and liberation, then it comes up with excuses, it projects, it blames, it runs away. From my perspective, that's fine. You're free. But notice if it would rather just sort of not be held accountable, kind of continue in mediocrity, telling yourself the story that you're trying, oh, it's just not working, but you're not really trying, you're hiding. Mirror mind, mirror mind, mirror mind. Remember. If nothing else, this is fucking fascinating. And I continue to appreciate your reflections back to me for my own work, as well as my own inspiration to make these videos based on your engagement. Thank you, but also thank yourself. Those of you who are engaging the work, I'm not saying it's everyone. There are just whispers of fear and where you feel kind of threatened and vulnerable and called out, and that's fine. What I'm teaching is in a direct response to the culture we live in right now, and at the same time is my unique way of expressing it and universal truths. So if you're asking for the work, this is it. And if you know that you're doing it and making progress and don't have a story around that or needing me to notice or something like that, then you won't need me to congratulate you. The congratulations is within and obvious and direct. At the same time, deep gratitude for all of you. Deep gratitude for the ones doing the work and seeing results. That's what I care about. I love you. Amen. Namaste.